Are you going to keep your hat on?
Yeah.
Oh, all right. Is that like your trademark?
No. Listen, I'm really cold, and it keeps in the hot and
And
hot
we
air.
match like 2 seasons here. Look at him. Welcome to the Dayna Show.
Here we go. Here we go. Hi, and welcome to the Dayna Show, where we discuss in English day-to-day life of Israeli citizens, our concerns and aspirations for the country, and everything in between. I'm your host, Dayna Kaplan, and we're so glad that you could join us. Before I start the podcast, I always like to remind everyone about the hostages. And even though now we're closer to a deal,
God willing.
God willing, I hope they're on their way back right now. They're all in our hearts and in our minds.
Absolutely.
On that note, some of you know this gentleman as a Jewish food researcher or an Israeli tour guide
Or just a guy.
or just Joel Haber.
That guy.
That guy, but I know you as Fun Joel.
Yes.
I think a lot of people call you Fun Joel.
Yes.
So welcome to the program, Fun Joel Haber.
Your brother said, I didn't know that was your nickname. And I'm like, how did you not know that? Yeah.
Where'd you get the name?
People ask me that a lot. I got the name Fun Joel from Funky Adina.
Funky Adina?
Yes. So basically.
Funky Cole Medina?
Something like that, yes. Funky Cold Adina, yes. So I don't even know if she remembers. Probably she does. But when I lived on the Upper West Side of Manhattan, wow, going back 20 plus years already, 25 years, who knows? We were at a Shabbat dinner, and somehow I guess maybe we were probably drunk, and somehow we got to the idea of like giving people nicknames, and she decided my nickname was Fun Joel. I decided hers was Funky Adina. And the difference was that she then went around introducing me to people as Fun Joel. Whereas I might call her that on occasion, but I didn't introduce it. And then it stuck, because like at one point, you never lived on the West Side, right?
Yes, I did.
Oh, you did. So you remember how like Simchat Torah, like the holiday, it's like a massive thing.
Yes.
So I'm like just out on the street talking to people, and all of a sudden I hear some guy over there go, hey, I know that guy, that's Fun Joel. And so then it stuck. So yeah.
Where did she get it from?
Because I'm fun.
Because you bring the fun?
Yeah, no, she just decided that was the appropriate nickname for me. And then there was another guy who I've subsequently run into. I was never close friends with him, but I would see him around. And he's like, I want a nickname. And his name was Jack. I thought for a second, and I said,
Jack.
No, I said, laid back Jack. And it worked. It was great. And everyone's like, yeah, that works. And he loved it. So like when I've run into him, I go, laid back Jack. And yeah, so it's cool.
Or you could have called him Flap.
And for anybody who's listening, maybe they're going to be tuning in. I don't know. Adina is Adina Sultanic. And laid back Jack is, I forgot his last name. Shoot, sorry. I don't remember his last name. But anyway, maybe Funky Adina remembers laid back Jack's last name.
Hi, everyone. I just wanted to take a quick break to tell you about a new sponsor we have on the Dayna Show, Holy Rollers Painting Company. If you're looking for a painting company that provides American-style service, no mess, great prices, and really easy to deal with, then I recommend Holy Rollers Painting. They painted my house, did an incredible job. I'm so happy with them, and that's why I'm recommending them to you. Contact Dave at Holy Rollers on Facebook, mention my name, Dayna, and get preferred pricing. Good luck with it. I was so happy. I'm sure you will be too. Now back to our show. You and I have been living in Israel for more or less the same amount of time.
I think you're a drop longer. I moved here almost 16 years ago.
Okay, yeah.
March of 2009.
I'm a little bit longer than you.
Yeah.
But I want to know like where you're from originally, like what it was like growing up there as a Jew. What was your Jewish education like? And what was the catalyst that made you move to Israel? Make Aliyah?
Sure, that's a lot to unpack, but yeah. So I grew up in New Jersey.
What part?
Northern, but not as far north as like Tinnick. When I was, first few years we spent in a town more central called Fords, which is close to Highland Park area, Edison. And when I was about 4, we moved to Livingston, New Jersey, which is where I grew up. Went to Jewish day school my whole life. Went to Jewish summer camp.
Orthodox family?
So it's funny, when I was very little, when we lived in Fords, we used to go to a conservative shul. But, traditional. But when we moved, we started going to an Orthodox shul that was very small at the time, and many of the families were not necessarily Orthodox. It was just that they wanted a more traditional place. And my parents always tell the story that when we first came to the community, the rabbi, who actually was Lubavitch, but the Rebbe, the Lubavitcher Rebbe, specifically told him to not make the shul a Chabad shul and to make it kind of a regular modern Orthodox shul for whatever his reasons were. That was what he did. So it was not a Chabad shul, even though the rabbi was of that background.
That's interesting.
It was very interesting.
Okay.
So when we first came and the rabbi
Because there's nothing wrong with Chabad.
No, not at all. It just wasn't that. And then when we first came to the community, we lived a bit further away from the shul, not that far. But the rabbi said to my parents, I know that people drive to shul on Shabbat, and when they do, that's where they park. Meaning, I'm very happy for you to drive here, just don't be a jerk and park right in front of the shul. And that was fine, and that was the way it was. So then my older brother, and I, it's just the two of us, when we moved, we were going to an Orthodox day school. And so just very gradually, the family became more observant over time. So yes, kind of a modern Orthodox, for lack of a better term, family, but in the beginning, a little bit less so, and then gradually more. Then I came to yeshiva in Israel for the year, which is actually when I first met your brother. And
where were you in yeshiva?
I was at Yeshivat Kotel in the old city of Jerusalem.
Very nice.
Yeah.
Oh, good.
And L'chaim.
L'chaim.
And then I went to Yeshiva University, YU. And then after that, not so. But in terms of how did I end up coming here?
Yeah, what was your...
So people often, being here for the year was mainly the catalyst for me. But I didn't make the decision to make Aliyah at that point. And I was always like, I want to make Aliyah eventually. I never had a specific time that I was going to come or anything like that. And the funny thing is that right now my entire immediate family lives in Israel. My brother and his family were the first to move here. My parents moved 6 months before I did, in September of 2008, and then I came in March of 2009. And people, when they hear, they're like, oh, you must have had a very Zionist family growing up. And it was never a defining element of our family life. Obviously, if you said, are you Zionist or not, we would have said Zionist.
Yeah.
But we weren't gung-ho, Israeli flags everywhere. We were pro-Israel for sure, but it was never a defining element of our family life, at least as I see it. I never really asked the rest of my family, but I don't think any of them would think it was. Mm-hmm. I did go to a B'nai Akiva summer camp, but I don't think that is what made me love Israel. It was being in Israel that made me love Israel. And so it was, I want to come eventually. I didn't know when. And when my parents moved in September of 2008, I did not know at that point that I was coming 6 months later.
Okay.
And the proof is that they lived in New Jersey still. I was living in LA. That summer, I freelanced. My work was freelance, so I could work from anywhere. I moved out of my apartment in LA, put my stuff into storage, flew to New Jersey to help them pack up their house. And then when they were getting on their plane to make Aliyah, I shipped 20 boxes of stuff that I wanted from New Jersey to LA. 6 months later, I had to either ship it to Israel or get rid of it. So that was I definitely didn't realize I was coming 6 months later. But in those intervening 6 months, the combination of, it was the financial crisis back then. Yeah. And I was really financially spinning my wheels. And I had no family in America anymore as a direct support system, or better than support system, I'd say as a safety net. Yeah. That's what got me thinking, that's not what made me make Aliyah, but that was what got me thinking maybe now is the right time. Mm-hmm. And so
you weren't against it?
No, for sure. Like I said, I always was I wanted to come eventually.
Right.
I just didn't know when it was going to be. And so all of that is kind of what made me start thinking about that's the right time to do it. And frankly, it's one of the quickest aliyahs in history. Really? I made a very quick decision. I made a very quick move. Literally. From the time that I started to seriously consider this is the time I might want to go till the time I decided, yes, I'm going to go, was 1 week.
Oh, wow.
I always say that in that week, I feel like I had already made up my mind and I was checking the decision rather than making the decision.
That's crazy, Joel.
Yeah. And then from the time that I decided till the time I arrived was a month and a half. Opening my Aliyah Tik, my file, getting everything together, filing everything, the whole thing, getting on a flight, coming here, closing up my life in America was literally a month and a half.
Wow.
And easily the best decision I've ever made in my life, no question.
Really?
My life is truly better here in every way than it was in America. I'm not saying it's perfect. Nowhere is perfect.
From what perspective?
From literally everything. Financially, my life is better here. Socially, my life is better here. Values-wise, lifestyle, everything for me is better here than it was there. It's not like my life was terrible there. I'm not saying that. But my life is better in every single way, honestly, here than it was there. And you always, I'm sure this happens to you, when you meet some like native Israelis that hear that you moved here, they're like, why would you do that or whatever? And I say to them, you maybe have visited America. Maybe you haven't even done that, and you've lived here. I've lived there and I've lived here. Who knows better? And always, they're like, yeah, that makes sense. You're right.
Yeah, they definitely think the grass is greener on the other side.
Everything is wonderful when you're a tourist, or even if you visit for 6 months, it could be like that, but it's not the same as living somewhere. I've lived in both places. And so I feel like I know a little bit better what it's like to live in a place. Okay? There's lots of places I might like to visit that I would never want to live.
I also don't have regrets moving here.
Awesome.
I think the quality of life here is much better than it is there.
I agree.
The only thing that I really miss are like the superficial things, like the products or the the things like that the things that you can buy.
Well, it's funny because that's actually one of the things that I didn't like about America, and that's why I came here. I didn't like all of that culture.
Yeah, but I've learned to live without it.
Yeah.
Like I don't need it.
But it's funny that you feel you still miss it.
No, I don't.
You just said you did.
No, but if you would ask me what I missed about America or North America, those would be the things. But
Okay.
other than that, and my family, of course, that's still
Right.
there. But other than that, every time I go visit there, I can't wait to come back.
Yeah, for me, the thing I miss the most probably is just my friends that are there. That's really the biggest thing, is the people, you know? Like, I still see a lot of them either when I go, because I go a decent amount, or when they come to visit, those who come to visit. But it's not the same. And of course, I have many other friends that I've made here, but, that's the thing I miss. I don't miss material things there personally, because I shouldn't say never, but as an adult, I wasn't into the material things very much. But yeah, it's
Now
people.
that you lived here for a while, and you're more or less acclimated to the culture and society here, what do you think the difference is between someone who makes Aliyah and doesn't want to make Aliyah? Like, what do you think that person has inside them?
You mean Jews who are from America, which is where I'm from. I'm not talking about other places that do not make Aliyah.
Yeah. Because you said also that wasn't really like a lifelong goal for you.
Right.
So, I guess the question is more, what keeps somebody here? Because you didn't really have that incentive, but what keeps someone here rather than someone who...
Yeah, so I don't know. I can't say that I am representative. Honestly, like, for me, and maybe this is why I came despite not having that upbringing, is because I wouldn't say that I made Aliyah for idealistic reasons. Some people do. I didn't move here because I was idealistic that Jews should live in Israel or things like that. Obviously, that's a background, and it's really an amazing thing to live in a country where you're not the minority and where the country operates on the Jewish calendar and all those little things that make you feel at home as a part of the majority culture rather than the minority culture, which is wonderful. But I've often said that even if I weren't Jewish, I would want to live here because I like the lifestyle here. I like the values here. I like the fact that there's importance and value placed on friends and family, on having a good life. Like, frankly, in America, people live to work, and here we work to live. And to me, that's my lifestyle. It is changing, and people here are getting more materialistic and are getting more into that American mindset, but still far from what that is.
Yeah.
And I hope that it never reaches that point. So for me, it was more about lifestyle, but that doesn't really answer the question of what differentiates the type of a person. For me, it was the value system. And if people connect with, I'm not anti-American or anything like that. If people connect with those values, they're going to want to live in that place better. So it's not like I can't say what's different about it. I can say, though, that, because I'm a tour guide and therefore I know a little bit about history and stuff like that. If we look at the numbers, there has never, ever been a significant, numerically, percentage-wise, significant aliyah from America, either as a percentage of people who are immigrants here or as a percentage of American Jewry. And that's not a surprise. People don't immigrate when things are good, and in general,
right,
not without exception, but in general, American Jewry has done very well for itself.
It's very comfortable there.
Exactly, and I don't just...
Well, not so much anymore.
Right, and that's why I think we have seen I know a lot of people that for the first time are talking about it and investigating it, and I hope that they don't have to because of that. I'm happy that we're here if they do need to, but I don't want... I'm not one of those people who thinks that every Jew should live in Israel. But what I do want is that any Jew who wants to live here can have a successful aliyah and a successful absorption. And that to me, there's nothing that really upsets me more than seeing people, even if I don't know them, but people that I know want to live here, and because of whatever reason, it just doesn't work out and they need to go back.
Yeah.
And that always hurts when I hear those stories,
Yeah.
Well, if you don't want to live here, I have no issue with somebody who says, I don't want to live in Israel. Okay, that's fine.
Listen,
but if you want to, I want you to be able to.
It's a very difficult life here.
It can be.
Listen, I agree with everything that you say, the value system, and like I said, I don't regret moving here at all. But it isn't an easy life. It's not an easy life anywhere in the world, but it isn't an easy life here. And for someone who it's a priority for them, all those materialistic things and whatever, then it's hard.
It can be.
It's hard. It's hard to make a living here.
I mean, look, for me, I don't think overall my life is hard here. Have there been times of difficulty? Of course. I'm lucky, okay? My life is not difficult here overall. Like I said, my life is better here, but that's not for everybody. It's not the way it's going to be for everybody. So yes, there are many, and even with my life not being so hard, there's things that can get irritating and can annoy me and that I find difficult here. But anywhere I am, I'm going to find things difficult, so.
And here, you always have support.
Yeah.
Here it's like, and that's like, you can't put a price on that.
Right. I mean, we always talk about this is not something new, but it's that thing where that in 1 second, your Israeli who's right opposite you is going to be driving you mad, and in literally the snap of a finger, he or she is your best friend and family and will protect you. I love, because, Israelis are extremely passionate people, and so I love seeing two guys on the street that are screaming full force at you. You think they're literally going to come to blows, and a second later, Zmanyanim, what's up? And they're friends, and you're what just happened?
Yeah, it's really boggling. It's
awesome though. But it's true, right?
Yeah,
you see it all the time.
When I was married, so I remember we went camping the first time that we were alone after we had my first son.
Yeah.
And we look up online, chursha, camping, whatever. We go to this chursha. There's no one there. We put up our tent. All of a sudden, stream of people coming, and there's this whole empty space. The people put their tent right next to ours. I'm getting changed, and I see them right out our window, and I'm like, "What the hell? There's all this empty space. What the hell? Why are they right next to us? Look what happened to personal space." But then, we became friends, and they offered to eat with us. They wanted to bring food. Do you still see them? Well, I'm divorced, so it's a little happy. Things change, but still, yes, they become your family.
I have friends that I've just made in a bar. Randomly or on a bus, people that I was just sitting next to that are friends still to this day.
Really?
Yeah. It's awesome.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't say that I don't have friends from bars in other countries also. But.
My sister found her match from a woman she met on the bus.
There you
Okay,
go.
this Yemenite woman
Yeah.
who's like, I have this guy for you. And she took her number, got in touch with her. They made the match, and they're together.
That's awesome. Yeah. And
From
like
this
it's not
random
even
woman.
it's not even a surprising story. I mean, I would never let that happen to me personally.
Why
but
not? Who knows?
Who does this Yemenite woman know about me? What does she know me?
But she was, my sister is not, she's a complicated person.
I don't know your sister, so I can't say, but I'll trust you on that.
But still, you never know.
Yeah, no, you never know, but you also, like, I don't need to take a chance on every you never know.
Okay, of course not. But when you're feeling adventurous,
Right,
you know,
exactly.
why not take
Hey,
a
I
chance?
mean, frankly, it's easier for women than it is for men to do something like that.
Really? Why?
Because they don't have to make any effort.
What kind of effort do men have to make?
When she took the number and gave it to this guy, he needed to call her, start the
Yeah.
conversation. He needed to decide if they're going to go out. He needed to figure out what they're going to do. I'm not against it. I'm just saying, like, I'm not going to make that effort in the same way that this guy might have, and whatever.
Listen,
if she went to him on the bus and said it about her, he might have said yes and he might have said no.
For whatever reason, it worked.
Right, and that's beautiful.
For
I love
whatever
it.
reason,
Yeah,
it
well, it's wonderful. I love it.
I know.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
It's crazy. Can we get back to moving to Israel and making Aliyah? But the first place that you moved, was it Yerushalayim, Jerusalem?
Yeah, so I've lived in Jerusalem the whole time I've been here. It's not
Really?
not only one like apartment. When I first made Aliyah, I moved in with my parents again after.
Were they happy to
having
see you?
Yeah, of course they were very happy. But like I hadn't lived with them in decades. I had moved out of the house a few years after college, so I hadn't lived with them in 15, 20 years at that point. Probably between 15 and 20 years. I don't remember exactly. 18 years, whatever it was.
By the way, I'm totally getting drunk on this beer.
Well, that's not my problem.
I don't drink alcohol at all.
Well, I didn't tell you to. You said you wanted
But
to have a beer with me.
I want to. This is perfect.
Because you feel it's part of my culture.
Yes, because you're fun, Joel,
I
and
do like
you
beer.
bring the thunder. Okay.
I do like beer, yes. So
Yes. Okay. Continue. I'm sorry for
guilty as
interrupting
charged.
you.
But no, please. This is not the Joel show. This is the Dayna show. And you're not required to finish it, okay?
I might have to.
Yeah, all right, no problem. But you're not required to.
Okay.
But maybe it'll be your most fun show if you get drunk.
It already is.
All right, good. Where were we? Oh, yeah. So I moved in with my parents.
Yeah.
Mainly, just to help me get settled and, start to make some money because, I didn't have a lot when I came, so I needed to, at least get enough that I could afford an apartment, whatever. I ended up staying there longer than I expected to, but not that long. I don't know, a few years I was there. Mainly because I started the tour guide course, which meant I wasn't working I was able to work a little bit, but I was mainly in the course becoming a licensed guide because in Israel being a tour guide is a licensed profession, so you need to take a course. And then
So
there's
that was your
exams.
first profession or your first initiative when you moved here?
So when I moved, I didn't know what I was going to do for a living.
Okay.
As I explained, I wasn't moving for a job. I was moving for life. And then when I got here, I'm like, okay, well, what am I going to do?
Okay.
When I was in America, I worked in the film industry on the screenwriting side of things. I knew I was not going to be doing that here, mainly because it's a small industry, and I was involved with writing in English.
Uh-huh.
So
Wait, how was your Hebrew when you moved here?
not good. I spoke like an educated nursery school student,
Okay.
meaning I had some vocabulary and terrible grammar.
Okay.
But I took it very seriously, and I started upon, a week and a half after I arrived because that was important to me to get better at my Hebrew. And I always say now that I'm fluent but flawed. I can have a long conversation on more than the most basic topics. I will not know every single word. I will make mistakes. I made a funny mistake today at work, but that's another story. But anyway, so I did actually, when I first arrived, as sort of one of the transitional things, I organized on my own a screenwriting course that I rented a space and advertised it and taught it. I did that. It was an 8-session course, and I think I did it 5 times.
Okay.
Twice in Jerusalem and 3 times in Tel Aviv. Anyway, but I knew that was not what I was going to be doing. But I didn't know what I was going to do. And then, literally on the first day that I was here, I had arrived, I was exhausted, I went to my parents' house, I went to sleep, And then the next day I wanted to go to the Kotel, to the Western Wall. So I'm walking down Derech Hebron, and some guy is walking towards me, and he sees me, he's like, Joel! And it's a guy that I knew, but not super well, but a guy I knew from my New York days. And he's like, what's up? And I said, I just made Aliyah yesterday. He's like, Mazel Tov. He's like, you should be a tour guide. And he's a tour guide. Yomi Groner is his name, he's a good friend. And then a few weeks after I was in Israel, I went on a tour with somebody over Passover, over Pesach break. And so I could see it a little bit more in action. I'm like, yeah, that's something that I would enjoy doing and I could be good at and I could make a living. And so then I spoke with him a little bit more to get some practical advice. And so, yes, then I decided to become a tour guide. But I didn't know I was going to do that when I arrived. And it's a 2-year course, or at least it was. Now I think it's a year and a half.
Wait, what was your exposure to different sites in Israel before the course? Were you at a lot of places?
Not much. I mean, when I was in Israel for the year in yeshiva, they take us on stuff, but I can't say that I really paid much attention.
Masada.
I always joke, I think one of the best examples, of course they went to those places, but my favorite example is we went to Machtesh Ramon, the Ramon, what we call the Ramon crater, even though it's not really a crater, whatever. And they tell us it's like Israel's Grand Canyon and all this kind of stuff. And we get there, and I remember literally thinking to myself, so what, it's a big hole in the ground. And I don't think that the tour guide did a bad job. I think I just wasn't even listening or paying attention, On my first trip to Israel, I was very impressed with Masada. I always loved Masada. Even though I couldn't tell you the story of it, then I just loved seeing. I was so impressed with Masada. That was always a site I loved. And so I didn't know a lot of the country before. I'd seen some places, but I couldn't say that I was heavily exposed.
And your interest in history, in Israeli history, also minimal?
Basically.
Basic.
Yeah. Not a ton. Mm-hmm. But I always had I shouldn't say always, but I did have some interest in history. I just didn't necessarily have as much knowledge of it.
Okay.
Basics. But, I did love Israel, and so being able to learn Israel and explain it to people was something that I was like, yeah, I'm going to like that. So I had to wait for the course to begin because I made Aliyah in March, and the course that I took started in December. So that was when I was doing the screenwriting course and stuff like that, and a little bit of other stuff here and there. And then it was a 2-year course, and then there's licensing exams, and then I was a tour guide.
Cool.
Yeah.
What places would you recommend people to go to? What's your favorite place in Israel to go to?
So my favorite place is always one that I haven't been to in a long time. That's it. I like different things. So somewhere that it's been a long time since I've been to Akko or something like that. So it's nice for me to go back there, But one of the things that I love about Israel as a tour guide is that it's extremely diverse for such a tiny place. There's so much packed into a
something
country.
for everybody.
Yeah, there really is. And there's so much packed into this country that's the size of New Jersey. Different climatic zones. You can literally ski, surf, and go to the desert in the same day.
Yeah.
Okay? The only other place on earth that I can think of that you can do that is California. Okay, but you can, technically.
Yeah,
okay?
yeah.
But that's insane, and that's just one thing. And different religions and history and sports and military stuff, if that's what interests you, and science, and there's just so much of everything. If you like hiking, if you like whatever it is, there's something here. So if somebody says to me, where should I go? I start with, what do you like?
Right.
What's your interests?
Right.
Because it's not one size fits all. I don't think that everybody who comes there there's almost no one thing that everybody should do. Okay, maybe everybody should go to the Western Wall, Jewish and non-Jewish. Maybe everybody should go to the Church of the Holy Sepulchre. Maybe everybody should, I don't know, go to Masada.
Yeah, if you're into
the
historical stuff.
Right, but there are certain things that are, if you're coming here, you want to see the things that make this place, right?
Right.
But, beyond that, I think it depends on what you like, What do you like?
I like archaeological stuff. I like seeing stuff from, I really like the city of David. I love going through there.
It's an amazing site.
Amazing site. I like here in Kfar Maccabi, they have all of these things from the time of the Maccabees. I think that's amazing. I love Masada. There's so many different places.
When you
that
look
I
at
like.
archaeology, is there a specific era or culture that you like the best?
Not necessarily. I just find it really cool, like to see under the ground the different civilizations.
Yeah.
I think that's
I mean,
it's like your mind starts to wander and think about, the life that they had, what they experienced, and you get little hints from all of the little things that were left over.
Totally. I mean, I love Caesarea as a site. It's
Yes.
a wonderful site.
Yes.
I'm a big fan of Tsipori also.
Oh yeah.
Both of those are like Roman era sites, but close by to you, not that far away, you have Maresha, Beit Kuvrin.
Right.
Did you ever do the dig for the day there?
No, but
I
my
used to
kids
work at
did.
the site. It's
Yeah,
a great program.
Yeah.
Where you're literally doing real, genuine archaeology. It's not, nobody's planting stuff, and it's not a sensitive dig, so they can just bring in tourists without real training and do it. And you're picking up like tens of pottery shards and things like that from, over 2,000 years ago. And you can also explore the site, and there's so much to see. It's an incredible experience there, really.
I have a feeling that you can get out your shovel anywhere in this country, and eventually you'll get to something.
There's no question that obviously hurts our real estate development issues here, but yeah.
Yeah, well, we had so rich in history here.
Yeah, but the thing is, I mean, you don't even need a shovel. You go to any area where there was archaeology, and you'll see just shards lying on the ground because they worked their way up to the surface. But something like that where you can actually participate in a genuine archaeological dig, and you find these places that, like, if you're on a more sensitive dig, you might find, one piece of pottery in a day, and here you're literally finding hundreds at a time because of the specific nature of the site. It's an incredible project, and you're touching real history. I remember literally the very first time I went there before I was working there, when I was getting ready to do the tour guide course. A friend of mine knew that I was going to do this, and her father has been a tour guide for a really long time, and so we went along with him there. And I'm in this cave. You're digging in caves, actually, and I find a piece of glass. I'm like, oh, this is probably from something like last week. And he's like, no, that's a 2,000-year-old shard of glass. I have a picture of me holding it up. It's an incredible thing.
Wow.
Yeah. I found a coin the second time I was there. It's just so rich. It's an incredible site. Yeah. So
It's incredible.
you should go there.
One of my regrets is I came to visit Israel a bunch of times before I moved here. But once I moved here and I started to get acclimated into Israeli society, you don't have as much time to travel and tour, unfortunately. Especially if you keep Shabbat. You don't have any days unless it's Chagim, and in Chagim everything is packed here. It's really hard to get around.
But that's one thing that's good for you, is that this is close to you.
Yeah, no,
It's a half-hour drive.
I'll definitely go. I'm interested in going. I appreciate the
and
recommendation.
you know where else is even closer than that? It's not, and you can go there and see the whole. It's like that'll be a half a day trip for you. There's what's called Khirbet Kayafa or Sha'arayim. You know where Tel Azikah is?
No.
It's just south of Beit Shemesh.
Okay.
If you're going down Road 38,
yeah.
You pass Beit Shemesh, Tel Azikah is on your right, and off to the left. It's hard to find, so you'd have to know how to get there. But it's an incredible site from basically the time of King David. It's a small city that has two gates, hence the name
What's it
Sha'arayim.
called?
So the official name of the site is Khirbet Kayafa.
Okay.
But many of these scholars believe it to be a city that was mentioned in the Bible, in the Tanakh, called Sha'arayim, which means two gates. And this city actually has two gates to it. And also it's in the proper location for it. It's a small site. It's kind of off the beaten track. But if you find it, it's incredible to see. And you can literally see the whole site in 30 minutes, an hour maximum. So it's worth getting there if you can.
I'll definitely look it up, and I'm interested in doing it because, like I said, I don't tour as much as I want to,
Right.
and there's so many incredible things all over the place, and they're not even so far away.
Yeah.
You can stumble upon anything here.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'll get a list from you afterwards.
Yeah, but enough about old rocks.
Yeah, enough about the rocks. I want to get to the food part.
Oh, all right. New rocks.
New rocks.
Yeah.
New rocks in your kidneys. Let's
Yes.
talk about Jewish. Let's talk about Jewish food.
Kidney stones. Yes. Okay.
How did you get from the touring in Israel to the food research and the food tours.
Yeah, so one of my favorite places in Jerusalem and really in Israel is shuk Machane Yehuda Market, which is the main open air market of Jerusalem. I've always loved it. I mean, I've always loved food, but it was never like my profession.
Do you remember the first time you were there?
Yes. The first time I was there made no impression on me. It was when I was in Israel for the year. Mm-hmm. I almost never went there when I was in Israel for the year. Maybe I went twice the whole year. Even though I was in Jerusalem, I barely ever went there. I do have one good memory, though. I don't think it was the first time I was there. I have one good memory when I was in yeshiva for the year where we stayed out all night on Thursday night. And early Friday morning, we go to the shuk. And I didn't have a lot of money when I was here for the year. And we start walking around from stand to stand. We're like, how much for one cucumber? And they're like, oh, just take it. And we go to somewhere else. How much for one tomato? Just take it. And we got like a whole salad for free. And that was really fun, you know?
Yeah.
So that was a good memory. But no, it was someplace I always liked. And when I was in the course, and we, you know, during the tour guide course, you visit all over the place. And we did have a tour, not only in Machane Yehuda, but in the neighborhood around it, Nachlaot. And we did go into the shuk a lot, and it got me thinking about doing the tour there. I'm not the first to do a tour in the shuk, but there are others, and each one of us does something slightly different, of course. But yeah, it was something that I was like, oh yeah, that's something that it would be a cool tour to do. And so I started to develop the tour, and you know, started offering it, and it became a popular tour. It's grown a lot in popularity over the time I've done it. I'd say that there's probably about 8 to 10 guides who do that tour a lot as a big portion of their work. And we all know each other more or less. It's grown a lot, but when I started doing that tour, it was just a tour I did, but I would always dig down into the food itself as a way of guiding it. So it opened up the world of food history. What's behind the food? Why is that from this place? How did it, all these different things. And at the same time, I also knew Gil Marks, alav hashalom, Gil Marks of blessed memory. He was a food scholar, a Jewish food scholar who wrote a number of books, including Encyclopedia of Jewish Food. And I met him because his mother used to be a next door neighbor of my brother's, so sometimes when he was visiting, we would see him. I'm talking in past tense because unfortunately he passed away way too young, cancer. But he was always very friendly and very responsive. If I ever had questions, he would answer me very quickly, and so he was also a big inspiration. And I remember that at one point, there was a high school. I can't even remember where they were from. I think it was somewhere in the Midwest. I don't remember exactly where. And they were here over Shavuot, and they were looking for programming. And somebody put me in touch with them. Actually, not to do this. They put me in touch because I as a hobby, I used to do stand-up comedy also.
Right.
So why don't you do some comedy for them? I was like, you know what? I've been thinking about this idea about the shuk. Maybe I can talk to them about the food in the shuk and how it represents the people. And I brought some food for them to eat also. And that was the very first time I did any kind of a lecture about food. And it went over well. And I developed that into a lecture that I gave a number of times. From that, I started to research more, had the idea to turn it into a book. So I started researching more and more. Then I realized it's way too big for a book. So I took certain sections out and did them as individual lectures, and eventually took one of those and am in the middle of my first book right now that is based on one of those. And so it just grew and grew over time, all this food history stuff.
You also talk about food history on your podcast.
Right.
The Jewish Food podcast?
Mm-hmm.
I listened to a few episodes.
It is called 18 Jewish Foods, which was the title of that original lecture I gave. But basically, Corona helped me in this, because when I wasn't doing tour guiding because nobody was able to come during COVID, if I just sat on my ass the whole time and did nothing, I would have gone crazy. So I was doing some like virtual tours and stuff like that, but it also gave me the opportunity to spend a lot more time focused on the food stuff. So if before it was like, here's my tour guiding and here's my food stuff, then it became like this. And so I started a blog and I started writing articles online for.
Were you always like a foodie? Were you always interested?
I always loved food, but it was never like what I did as a profession or thought about it seriously. It was just I love food.
You never did research on
exactly
on food. Okay.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I just liked food and I cooked and cooked pretty well and all of that, but it was never like anything I took any more seriously than that.
Right.
But gradually from the food tour, all of this other stuff opened and started, I started the process. And when I had time with Corona, I ramped it up a lot more. So writing articles, working more on the book, started writing the book, which I've now completed the first draft and I'm in the middle of doing rewrites on.
Really? It's almost done?
Well, the first draft is done and I'm now doing rewrites. I'm still looking for a publisher, talking to a few different places.
What's it called, the book?
The book is called Cholent, the Most Jewish Food on Earth. And it's not only about cholent, it is about all of the Shabbat stews from around the world. Cholent, chamin, dafina, osavo, tibit, and many, many, many more. Most of those you've probably never heard of.
Not true. I've heard about 3 out of 5 of them.
Okay, good.
Yes.
Good.
Yes.
I'm impressed.
Oh.
I won't ask which. But and then it was within this past year that I decided to do a podcast. Since it was my first podcasting endeavor, I wanted to do it in a manageable fashion where I could see, first of all, if I enjoyed doing it, second of all, how it was received, the whole thing. So I did a closed-ended podcast, 20 episodes, start to finish, it's done. And I finished the last episode, I guess, about a month and a half ago. But obviously they don't go anywhere, they're all up. So 18 Jewish foods, 1 episode for each of the foods, plus an intro and a wrap-up, hence 20 episodes. Short episodes, 15 to 20 minutes each, so you can really just in and out, bang, hear it. Which episodes did you hear? Do you remember?
The bagel one.
Okay, so that was one of the later ones, yeah?
Yeah, but I like the way you speak. You speak very clearly.
Thank you so much.
You're very, very understandable, very clear.
I try to articulate. No,
yes.
I'm kidding, yeah.
No, but you really do.
Thank you.
You speak very clear and you give a very clear message. It's very understandable.
Thank you.
And very interesting, too.
Awesome, thanks.
I really like it.
So I've done that, and now I'm thinking about what's going to be next. Most likely, as I mentioned in the last episode, in the wrap-up, I think I do have some ideas about what the next podcast will be, because I did enjoy doing it. I'm not ready to start on that right now, because I need to get, focus more on business these days, which we can talk about also with the war and all of that.
Yeah, for sure.
But what I most likely will do is within another month or so, I probably will launch a mini bonus season with a few new episodes and outtakes of the interviews.
Do.
Yeah.
Please
thank you.
Because you know what, my podcast is about amazing people in Israel.
Thank you.
And what I really want is just to raise people up and to inject a little positivity and fun. And like listening to your podcast and all those topics, they're good vibes.
Thank you.
It's really good vibes.
I mean, look, who doesn't like food, right?
Who doesn't?
Not everybody
has a
loves
story.
food the same way I do, but there's few people, not nobody, but there's very few people that don't like food.
Well, you know what? I don't think that before I listened to your podcast, I ever heard the term Jewish food mythology.
Oh, culinary mythology, I said, right?
Culinary mythology.
Not specifically Jewish culinary mythology, but the idea that, so there are these things where, people just tell these stories about the origin of a food or I don't know, how something came about, and they're absolutely false often. Not everything, of course, some things are true, but a lot of times they're just myths that people have made up. I think what you're talking about in the bagel one is about, people say that it was created to honor this, Polish king, and we have written records of the bagel existing from before he was born.
Right.
So clearly it wasn't invented for him,
Yeah. What's the oldest Jewish food besides matzah?
Oh, I think matzah is the oldest.
Okay, matzah, of course, that's a given, but...
No, and I'm glad you said it, because, to me, that is... So when I do in the book and I call it the most Jewish food on earth, I would stand behind that claim, but I think the only other one that could possibly rival it is matzah, because it's directly commanded to us in the Torah to eat. You know, so like, and it grows out of our national history and all of that. So that's probably the most Jewish. But
Wait, so maror is also in that category, isn't it?
less so. It does say al matzot umorim tochlu. Yeah, like it is something that is there, but I think it's a little
Maror
bit
is
less.
it? How do you say it in English?
Bitter herbs.
Bitter
yeah.
herbs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That we eat also on
Horseradish.
Passover.
Like what is it? What's that vegetable called?
So there's horseradish. Others will do romaine lettuce.
Yeah.
There's different things. Yeah, whatever. But but that's less central.
Okay, so what's after that,
So,
that genre?
In terms of the oldest, though, it's hard to say because it really comes down to how you define your terms. What makes a Jewish food a Jewish, or what makes a food a Jewish food? So there's a lot of different things we could talk about because there's things that we ate a long time ago. Are we talking about ingredients? Are we talking about dishes? You know, instead of oldest.
I thought about this also because there are also that you're right. There are ingredients and then there are dishes, and the dishes that we have, I guess they're more or less new because even cholent, right? So you needed to have a fire to make it.
Well, fire has been around a lot longer than we have as people.
but
So in the book, it's too long to get into all the details of it, but I would say that the Ur stew, like the original Shabbat stew, of which basically what I argue is that all of these different Shabbat stews from around the world, for those who don't know what I mean by a Shabbat stew, Jewish observant Jews traditionally don't cook actively on Shabbat, on the Sabbath, and therefore in virtually every Jewish community around the world, not every single one, there is some sort of a multi-ingredient stew, for lack of a better term, that is prepared on Friday and left to heat for the entire night on Friday night to be eaten hot for lunch on Shabbat.
Right.
That's what I mean by all of them. And there's many different ones with different names, different ingredients.
right.
To me, they are all versions of the same dish rather than different dishes. And as we moved around the world, we took that dish with us and changed it in each place, either based on what was available or on different cultural things or whatever. And so in the book, I use them as a way of tracing the roots of our migrations through the diaspora. So what I would argue is the earliest version of the dish probably originates around, certainly within the first millennium CE, probably around 500 or so, around the year 500, give or take.
How do you know that?
Too many dots for me to be able to tell you the story, but connecting the dots. Basically, most likely, it is a dish called harissa, not the spicy paste from North Africa.
Okay.
It is a dish that is still eaten today by many Jewish communities as their Shabbat stew. It is also eaten by many non-Jews under different circumstances. It is a very basic dish, but the core of it is the same core as we find in all the Shabbat stews. And if Jewish communities today are eating an ancient dish as their Shabbat stew, it's most likely that they adopted it as that Shabbat stew 1,500 years ago rather than now. That's the short answer of it. There's a lot more to it, but that's the short answer.
What else is there besides cholent?
As ancient foods?
Yeah.
So,
Besides like the Hanukkah, the holiday foods, the latkes and those neoma.
okay, but like rather than specific Shabbat, specific holiday foods, I would say that when we look at Jewish foods, obviously one of the things is that anywhere you go, and I was just talking about this on a tour today, throughout history, wherever Jews have lived, most of the foods that we ate were the same as the people next to us, okay? But in each place, there would always be differences. There might have been a slightly different Jewish version of a dish, often because of kosher laws. And we usually had some foods that were unique to us that the non-Jews didn't eat, okay? So, for example, let's take an ancient culture like the Persian Jews of Iran, okay? They've been living there for 2,700 years. It's a pretty long time.
Yeah.
Okay? And so Persian Jewish food and non-Jewish Persian food is very similar because their cuisines developed side by side together. So 2,700 years ago, both of them were eating different things than they eat now, but those cuisines developed in parallel. But there are a number of Persian Jewish dishes that non-Jewish Persians don't eat. For example, there's a food, and this, I'm not saying it's 2,700 years old, but there's a dish called gondi. Have you ever had gondi?
No.
Delicious. It's one of my other episodes on the podcast.
Okay, I listen.
It's basically typically served at Shabbat dinner. So this is what I was getting at. A lot of our special foods are foods that we would eat for Shabbat or for holidays. In a soup over rice, and it's like basically a big fluffy meatball. Okay?
Oh, wow.
It's made usually with ground chicken, and that's
What's it called again?
gondi.
Gondi. Okay.
Actually, the term, most people believe that it's derived, the name is derived from a sort of naughty word for a testicle.
Okay.
It's a big ball.
Okay. I thought you were going to say Gandhi's head. Okay.
No. Much more fun than that. We're talking about big balls.
Okay.
Just like the AC/DC song, of course.
Of course.
Right.
Whatever floats your boat.
No, so basically you start with ground chicken, and you mix it together with chickpea flour, ground chickpeas. And that stops the meat from like densely sticking together as a heavy ball, and it makes it fluffy, and also gives it more protein. And then it's flavored with grated onion, so not pieces of onion, you just get the flavor of the onion, and different spices like cardamom and cumin and stuff like that. Delicious. And then served in a soup over rice. So that's a Jewish food. I'm not saying it's the oldest one, because we can't really figure out when its origins are, but that is a uniquely Jewish food. Other Persians don't eat it.
Are there a lot of dishes that you've learned about throughout this process?
Yeah, totally.
Have you tried making most of them?
Many of them. I don't know about most, but I always am. I've always tried to make new foods, not only Jewish foods. I get bored, so I always, whenever I cook, I have no hesitation about having people over and serving them something I've never made before. Some people need to always try it. I trust myself enough that I know it's not going to suck. It might not be great, but I know it's not going to suck, you know? So, yeah, so I've tried a lot of them. There's others that I hope to try in the future. Yeah.
Is there a particular recipe from your childhood, from either your mother's cooking or your grandparents' cooking, that you particularly liked and that maybe you make now or you...
Not really. I mean, I definitely got my love of food and cooking and my adventurousness in the kitchen from my mom. My mom she's, thank God, still alive, an adventurous cook, and, you know, we were always eating foods from all over and stuff like that.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah, good.
But I also know that I did not learn to cook from her. Mm-hmm. She never formally taught me, and I know, like, if we're ever in the kitchen together, we'll kill each other because we always do things completely differently. And, you have to do it this way, you have to do that. But, like, so it was not a specific food or a specific dish or a specific way of cooking. It was more the background and the desire rather than anything specific. I liked much of my mom's a great cook. I love a lot of her stuff, but I can't think of one thing in particular that was there.
What's your mom's origin?
Ashkenazi Jewish. She grew up in Brooklyn. Her parents were from Poland, Austria area. Yeah.
Okay. Were your grandparents alive when you were a child?
Yeah. All four of them were alive when I was a child.
Did your grandmothers
since
cook?
Passed. Yes. I don't remember. We would go visit them, but I don't remember foods that I ate at their place. It would be more that they would come to us. But I do know, like, for example, a lot of the foods that my mom would cook, especially for the holidays, she would cook things. Her menu was, I make this because that's what my mom made, But I don't have distinct memories of the foods that I ate in my grandparents' house.
I very much do.
Yeah, so that's
very
wonderful.
Much do.
But like, your grandparents are still alive, or or they've all passed?
No. My grandparents are alive.
When did your last grandparent pass away? How long ago?
My last grandparent passed away about 20 years ago.
Right.
Something like that.
So but I think mine were even before that. Yeah.
My mother's parents were from Poland. My father's parents, well, his father was Canadian, but my grandmother was from Ukraine, and their culinary abilities were completely different. My
Right.
Ukrainian grandmother was mostly salty,
Mm-hmm.
and my Polish grandmother was just rich and heavy and fatty and sweet and all that.
So I'm going to tell you something that you might not know about, but like that works perfectly because there is something called the gefilte line. Have you heard of this?
No.
It's not a joke. It's like a scholar discovered it, and it's totally true. It not only affects gefilte fish, also kugel and other things that you can literally draw a line on a map. Okay? What this scholar back in the 60s noticed was that there's two main kinds of gefilte fish, one that has a lot of sugar in it and one that's
Right, you're
more
so right.
savory and peppery.
Yeah.
And he noticed that it lined up perfectly with different dialects of Yiddish. And you
Because
can
they
draw-
both spoke Yiddish too.
Right, but they were different.
Yeah.
They were different dialects, and it was because in the area of Galicia, which is on the western side in the south, is where there was a lot of sugar beet refining, and there was more sugar available for less money, and therefore they used more of it, and so the foods there became sweeter, and in Lithuania and in Ukraine and stuff like that, it was more savory. Crazy, right?
That is really interesting because, especially when it comes to gefilte fish, both of them would make it totally different dishes.
There you go.
My grandmother from Poland was, with carrots and it's very sweet, and my grandmother from Ukraine was salty with pepper. It was completely different dish.
So they lived the gefilte line.
But I wanted to ask you about this dish because
Yeah.
I feel like you're like the Jewish food encyclopedia.
Gil Marx
So-
literally wrote the Encyclopedia of Jewish Food,
Okay,
but
I want
I try to tread lightly in his steps.
I want to try to pick your mind a little
Please.
bit. Maybe I don't know if you've heard of this dish. Do you know what helzel is?
Of course,
You do.
Helzele, yeah, it's stuffed poultry neck skin.
Oh God.
So basically, it's like kishka.
Wow, you really are the real thing.
Thank you. It's really just the same thing as kishka. It's just that kishka is stuffed into an intestine, and helzele is stuffed into, originally it was goose skin, and then it would be more chicken skin normally. But the stuffing is exactly the same.
Yeah.
It's a really simple dough. It's like flour or matzah meal with schmaltz and maybe some onions and maybe some paprika, and that's it, really. So it's literally the same stuffing, but the reason that, at least as I guess, that the reason that kishka kind of survived when helzele didn't is because
Because it's disgusting.
no, what you think that neck skin is more disgusting than
Yes,
intestines?
because I used to watch my grandmother sew it up.
Okay, but so what?
That's gross. It was
It's
so
less gross than intestines.
Yeah, but
But that's actually
the
what I
neck,
think is
you see the bones inside. It actually looks like a neck.
Oh, it was usually they would just remove the skin of the neck and do it. She did it with the bones of the neck in there.
Yes.
That's a little odd. Everything I've ever seen has always been just the skin. But what I was going to say is that I think that once people started using synthetic casings, they're not using intestines for kishka anymore. And since the stuffing is exactly the same, why don't you use the kishka that's a lot bigger instead of a
Yeah.
helzele, which is a lot smaller? And so
You get more bang for your buck.
right. Originally, it was that both of them were a way of using everything and not wasting. But if you're already getting to the point where you're not even using the traditional casing, you're using cellulose or whatever it is.
I remember, you know what, though, the original casing tasted a lot better.
I've had real kishka with
Oh, yeah.
with
I remember
intestines.
when they made that
Totally.
transition.
You can still get it in the shuk in Jerusalem. That's where I got it.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, you got to show me where.
Sure. Totally.
Yeah, you got to show me where.
But helzele is well known. It was very popular in Hungary, and also in Eastern Europe. Yeah, totally.
Yeah, my grandmother used to make that, and she also used to make the chicken feet.
So that that is something that I've heard about, but I've never seen.
Well, you're lucky- you're
put
lucky
it,
then.
No, they put it into chicken soup normally. Is that what she did?
Yes, but she used to eat it too.
Yeah, I've never had those. And there's one other thing that I've only read about because I don't even think, unless you actually know a chicken farmer, I don't know where you can possibly find them. But they're called eierlach, which are unformed eggs. Okay? When you slaughter a chicken, the eggs that are still inside the hen don't have a shell. Okay? And
What's that food called? Like that.
I mean, it's the eggs.
Yeah, but what are fish eggs called?
Oh,
Caviar.
caviar.
Caviar. So
Yeah.
it's like Jewish caviar.
I guess so. I never thought about it, but yeah, I guess so.
Yeah.
But the thing is that, just as a little quirk of halacha, of Jewish law, is that since it's in the chicken when it's slaughtered, they're not parva like other eggs. They're actually fleshik. They're actually considered meat. Okay? And people used to take them. So basically, they're considered meaty. And then they don't have a shell. So they're like a little like golden orb. And people would take them and just drop them into chicken soup, and they would poach in there, and they would have these like golden gooey orbs of egg in their soup as like an extra thing. I would love to try it, but where do you find unformed eggs these days? They're like impossible. I'm sure the health code doesn't even let them get sold. Maybe if you live next to a chicken farm, you can go over and say, hey, could I have those? But like, isn't that incredible?
Have you ever been to a Jewish slaughterhouse?
I have not. Have you?
Yes.
We
used to go.
Were they doing like cattle or just chickens?
No, chickens.
Yeah.
In Toronto, I used to force my dad to take me Erev Yom Kippur.
You were very from.
Well, you know what? I thought I was like, if this is already a mitzvah or a tradition, I'm like, why don't we do it? Like, screw doing it with the money. It's a tradition that you take the tarnigol, the chicken, and you wave it around your head. It looks a little bit, hocus pocusy. But we went downtown to a kosher place where the slaughterhouse.
Yeah.
And we would do it, and we give it to them. They would do the shechting, and would go around this conveyor belt. We would take it home to my mother, and my grandfather used to work with chickens, so my mother knew how to she knew how to open it up and do all the things.
Cool.
And I remember her taking out all the intestines and the liver, and the smell was horrible.
This is what's going to make this the best listened to podcast episode. People talking about
gross,
innards. Yes.
Oh, it was really gnarly. The smell was horrendous.
So yeah, I mean, I've never been, but I would go.
And then we would eat it on Sukkot.
Of course, on Sukkot, not on Yom Kippur.
No.
Okay.
No.
Yeah, so no, I've never been, but I would go. I would like to. I should.
You should.
I know I should.
It's an interesting process.
Yeah. I mean, not for kaparot. I have no desire to do, but because I don't even do it with money. I'm not a believer
Are you
in
religious
that.
now? Are you whatever?
For lack of a better term, yes, I am.
You're Shomer Shabbat?
I'm Shomer Shabbat. I'm Shomer Kashrut.
Yofi.
But
Mazel Tov.
But I'm not superstitious, and I believe that to be a purely superstitious thing, and not even a real minhag or anything like that.
Look, as a kid though, I thought it would be fun. I mean, it would be interesting.
For sure. But it's just not my thing, so that's why I wouldn't. But I should go to a slaughterhouse just to see it, and especially if you're going to eat meat, you should see how it's done if you want to be honest with yourself.
Well, they say it's the most moral way of slaughtering an animal, the Jewish method.
That's what they say. I don't know, but no, I hope so. I'd like to think so.
What's your favorite, besides cholent, Jewish meal, Jewish dish?
So, well, it's so hard because my whole life is these Jewish foods.
Yeah, well, your favorite. It could be anything. It could be a bread, it could be a dessert, it could be an entree, whatever. What's your favorite?
There's so many. I'm trying to think.
Top 3.
I can't even do that.
Really?
Yeah, because it's like before. I always like to try something new. Same thing like with the tour guiding. I always like trying new foods. But wow, I'd say within Ashkenazi food, and that still is very broad because it's not like Russians and Hungarians and Germans ate the same food. But I'll just do Ashkenazi food. I mean, it goes with cholent, but kugel is just awesome.
Oh, yeah. But potato or Yerushalmi or what?
I'd say of all of them, I think potato I like the best. Although I actually have done, I've made like a mixed root vegetable kugel instead of just potatoes. So it gets like more flavor and also a little bit more nutrients. So it's like potatoes and kohlrabi and Jerusalem artichokes and turnips and onions and all of that and carrots in one kugel. That's even better. But yeah, kugel is good. For American Jewish food, which is not synonymous with European Ashkenazi food, I mean, maybe not 100% Jewish, but New York cheesecake is bomb.
Out of this world, yeah.
Yeah, that's like...
But that's not necessarily a Jewish food.
But it does have its Jewish connections and in many ways could be a Jewish food.
Really?
Yeah.
How?
I mean, the New York style cheesecake, I'm not talking about all cheesecake. The New York style cheesecake grew out of Jewish restaurants in New York. And the way it took over America was via Sara Lee, which is also a Jewish company selling frozen cheesecakes.
Oh, really? I didn't know Sara Lee was
Yeah, Sara Lee is Jewish.
kosher?
Yeah.
Really?
I mean, I don't know if it still is. It was.
Okay.
But regardless of kosher, it's a Jewish company, and
Okay.
they were the ones who popularized it. So
Okay.
did we invent it? I don't know. I don't know if anybody knows who first invented that kind of a cheesecake. I mean, cheesecake in general goes back to like ancient Rome. But the New York style cheesecake is really a Jewish food.
Okay. And number 3, sufganiyot.
So wait, those are both on the Ashkenazi.
Okay,
If I'm
sorry.
going to go to like, let's say, general Sephardi, and again, I get really beyond just Ashkenazi and Sephardi. I don't think we're just those two.
Yeah.
There's way more than that. But within actual Sephardic cuisine, I think that, what is it called? Like keftes de prasa, which is like these leek fritters, leek patties. Those are really yummy. Aminados, the chamin eggs, the brown eggs, those are delicious.
Oh, wow.
If we're going to other cuisines, like, you have Bukharian cuisine, which is neither
Amazing.
Ashkenazi nor Sephardi.
Yeah.
I mean,
Persian food, Iraqi.
yeah, well,
Iraqi
Gundi I
food.
love in terms of that, in terms of the Persian.
Indian.
Yeah. There's some really, so,
It's endless.
yeah, I'm trying to find you, I couldn't settle one, but I was trying to find from different cuisines. But yeah.
What do you like better? I know this is going to hard to say whether sorry, the alcohol.
Don't blame the alcohol.
What do you prefer, Ashkenazi or Sephardic food?
Well, like I said, I already object to that question because it's not Ashkenazi or Sephardi. There's Ashkenazi, there's Sephardi, there's Mizrahi, and there's everything else.
Which culture has the food that you most connect to?
So I'm going to be Jewish and deflect, but I will answer the question in a different way, which is that one of my missions in the food work that I do, I have many, but one of them is two sides of a coin. On the one side, it is to broaden the minds of Ashkenazi Jews about what Jewish food is. That there's tons of Jewish food that is not Ashkenazi, and that Ashkenazi food is not just all that Jewish food is. But on the other side of that coin is to defend Ashkenazi food against all of the non-Ashkenazim who like to attack it as bad. So I like it all, is the real answer, but I try to celebrate both the Ashkenazi food and the Sephardi food and all the others. To me, exploring Jewish food is about celebrating the diversity of our culture, and
Yeah.
I'm not about choosing one or another,
Yeah.
And I don't like labels. That's why, like, when you ask me, like, Orthodox, like, I don't consider myself anything. I'm just Jewish,
That's one of the advantages of living in Israel.
Absolutely.
You don't have to be stuck into any kind of
Box.
box. Exactly.
Yeah. So, like, labels divide us.
Yeah.
Right? And instead of being like, what kind of a Jew are you and what kind of a Jew am I, if it's just, we're both Jews, then all of a sudden we're the same instead of different.
Yeah.
And so that's the way I view it. I don't need to know what kind of a Jew you are, whether that's about your what part of the world your ancestors come from, or whether it's about how you observe or don't observe or any of those things. I don't care what kind of a Jew you are. If you're a Jew, you're a Jew, and I'm a Jew. I mean, we could say the same thing about the people of the world. It's not like I'm chauvinistic about only Jews, Like,
Yeah.
I love everybody and whatever. But so we could say, oh, you're a human and I'm a human, But I don't need the labels.
Yeah.
So
For sure.
that's me. Yeah.
How has the current war affected your tourism business?
It's been great.
Yeah. Better than
Booming.
ever. Better
Oh my
than
God, you have
ever.
no idea. Yeah. No, obviously it's been very hard in terms of the tourism stuff. For the first, I don't know how long, probably 6 months at least, I don't think I had any guiding work at all. Mm-hmm. Then I had a trickle. In the summer, this past summer was a noticeable uptick, but still not even remotely close to a normal summer. Like a normal summer is booming and, Yeah, it was more than what I had before, but nothing.
How many tours would you do on a regular summer, in a busy summer?
I mean, usually of the, let's say 3 months of the summer, June, July, August, is how I kind of view the summer. Not always the same month, but there's usually one of those 3 months that is literally wall to wall packed with like almost no breathing room at all. And the other 2 months are still strong. This summer, I mean, I don't know the numbers. I definitely had work, but nothing like that. Since then, it's been going in, sort of like waves. Whenever there's a holiday, people come in, so Thanksgiving week I had stuff, Christmas, New Year's time I had stuff. Next week is, there's a lot of tourists coming in. So like I have these, these pockets. But it's been hard. And then with the other work that I do with the food stuff, so, I also do these lecture tours where I travel around, and I've been to the States probably now, I think 5 or 6 tours that I've done where...
Well, that's where we see each other all the time,
Well,
in the airport.
All the time, once.
All the time. Yeah.
That was great, though. It was
No,
a great...
but the 2 times that I flew, I saw you both times.
Both? I
Yes.
only remembered one. Okay, I
Yes,
believe you.
we saw each other both times when I was in
wow.
the airport. Yeah.
Cool.
So at least we have that.
Yeah. So that...
What do you do? What are you lecturing about when you...
Jewish food history. So, I have probably 10 or 12 topics, and I'm always developing new ones. And I book these tours, and I travel around and go to synagogues of all varieties, and JCCs, and federation groups, and schools, and student centers, senior centers, and whatever, all those types of things. So I've done, I think, 5 tours in America so far, a little bit in Canada.
That's great. That's amazing.
A little bit in Canada. I've also done a little bit in England. That I've been able to do during the war, although it still has been a challenge.
Yeah.
The war's even affected that as well, because places there that might have done stuff that was a little bit more general Jewish want to focus their attention on connecting with Israel, as they should. I'm not, and I was able to obviously work some of that in, but still, it's not the same thing. And people want to be
part of the war effort,
as they should be, and I understand that. But definitely, that's also affected me. Not as much, but it's also affected me. So, yeah, it's been a hard, what's it been now? 15, 16 months already, which is incomprehensible.
Did you think the war would last
Absolutely
this long?
not. Absolutely not. Look, I didn't think COVID was going to last as long as it did either. Like when COVID started, I was literally like, yeah, I think maybe the beginning of tourists coming back is going to be in September of 2020. Clearly that didn't happen. And after that, I stopped predicting. I was like, I don't know anything.
Has the war changed your opinion on living in Israel? Because you said
No.
you didn't really have that much of a feeling to move here. It wasn't like you came here from a Zionist dream.
No, not at all. I still love it here. I still intend to keep doing the same things I do, doing my tourism when the tourists come back. God willing, it'll be soon. I intend to keep doing the food stuff that I do. I still love Israel. So no, it hasn't changed me. Has it changed your attitudes or?
Of course, when things happen here, last night I was in this room for a siren. It's almost a surreal experience. It's like, us growing up in North America, we're not used to those things. So
yeah,
it's still,
I heard you had one here. We didn't get it in Jerusalem, but I did hear about it here. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, 2 weeks ago, I was at my mother's in Jerusalem, and we had a siren there on a Thursday night.
Yep.
So it still, shocks me a little bit. It's not like I'm not used to it, and I sometimes I'm like, I just don't understand why everyone can't get along. I have that North American attitude, peace and love, everyone just get along. But there's nowhere else on earth that I'd rather be.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
And no else where I feel safer here than anywhere else.
Yeah, and so has it been a challenge? Of course, but not enough of a challenge that makes me question living here and seeing what's going on around the world with anti-Semitism. Where would you go anyway? it's still way better here.
Yeah, for sure.
Like let's be surrounded by our people, supported by our people, and all of that. I don't need to go anywhere else.
Forget about anti-Semitism. Like, look what's happening in California right now. Like, the entire area is burnt down.
Where I moved here from, but
Yeah.
that's not something like. Look, that's a one.
That's actually
thing,
something that could have been prevented.
Are you forgetting that we had a fire here not that long ago?
Of course.
So
Of
whatever.
course, but there,
I don't
you're
know how
talking
much it
about
could have
Los
been
Angeles,
prevented.
California. It's like,
I mean, look, I haven't followed it that much, so I'm definitely not in a
do
position.
you know
to talk
people
about it.
that have been
Of course
evacuated? Yeah.
Yeah, I know people that lost their houses.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
I know people who lost their homes. I know people whose parents lost their homes. Absolutely. Yeah. It's,
What do
really
they
difficult.
do in that situation? Do
Don't
they
know.
have insurance to cover? Like they say the insurance companies are like folding and
I don't know. I mean, I'm sure that the government is going to have to help in some way.
but it's
Not even about that. It's like I don't think people are so concerned about will we get another home. It's these people have lost their entire
right, and like in an instant.
yeah, like their whole lives.
Yeah.
I mean, not their lives, thank God, but like all of their memories are now just memories instead of all their memory aids that they had, pictures, heirlooms.
Yeah.
All of these things.
Yeah.
It's like I can't comprehend, and it's so horrible. And I send so much love and support to my friends out there and to people I don't know. I mean, like it's. Thankfully, most of my friends are not in an area where that's happened, but I definitely have a number of friends, not my closest friends, but I know a number of people who have lost their houses. And
I was watching a little sirton, a little video, a post on Instagram with what's her name, Noah Tishby. She put up this post and asked if this happened to you, like what are the things you would take? If you could only take a few things from your house, what would you take?
yeah,
And
what would you take?
well, I would obviously take, my documents, like passports and things like that. And other than that, I mean, besides my kids.
You take them?
Well, they're not actually here, so
Yeah.
I wouldn't have.
They might
so I
take
have
you.
more, yeah.
That's what happens as we get older, right?
No, gym equipment, no.
You wouldn't
No.
take these mics?
No, I wouldn't take the mics. I don't know. Yeah, I'd probably
I think
just take some photos.
I
and
would
things
take
like
I would
that.
take my computer.
Yeah.
Because like everything I have is on there, like my, like I back things up, but like that's like I live on my computer basically.
And don't forget a charger.
You can buy a new one of those. That's not so. No, I would definitely take my computer. That's one of the first things for sure that I would take. I don't know what else.
Everything else. I mean, obviously memories. You have mementos. You have photos.
Underwear.
That you can also buy,
Yeah,
unless there's something.
But how long do you want to wear them until you're able to buy a new pair, right?
I don't know. You see these people that are with duffel bags. I don't know how they packed.
Yeah.
Like they knowing that we're never going to be coming back.
It's
be the
funny.
most horrible
Even though you're
feeling.
absolutely right, I don't know that I would have thought of my passports. How stupid is that? But yeah, I don't know.
Well, I just think about waiting in line for a new passport here. It's the biggest pain in the ass ever.
Oh
Who
my
wants
God!
to do
Yeah,
that?
yeah. Seriously.
You got to think of what's the hardest thing to get back.
Yeah.
In Israel, there's a list.
Seriously. Yeah, but I mean, my computer would definitely be one of the things I would grab. I mean, and luckily it's not too heavy, but I don't know. Maybe some books.
A couple of Hawaiian shirts.
Maybe.
You should never know. We should
Amen.
never, ever,
Amen.
ever know.
Amen. Yes,
ever
absolutely.
know. So tell me, what do you want to promote now? What's your new?
I'd like to give you a promotion.
Me a promotion.
Yeah, you've
Thank you.
you've now become the executive producer of the Dayna Show. No, look, I'll say this. So, I was speaking about the food stuff and the lecture tours I do, and I don't know when you're planning to air this episode. It could be tomorrow, it could be in 10 weeks, I don't know. But I do have a lecture tour coming up that I can still book more stuff on. So that would be the end of February, beginning of March.
Okay.
And another one towards the end of spring in like late May, early June, around the Shavuot time, including the Shavuot holiday. So if anybody is interested in booking me for a lecture. My website is tasteofjew.com.
Okay, I'm going to put the links.
Yeah, but I'm just saying it.
Okay.
And email is jewishfoodbook@gmail.com, and I would love to do that. That's, I guess, one of the
Highly
main things.
recommended.
Thank you so much.
Highly recommended.
So yeah, so that's the main thing. If anybody is interested in discussing, having a lecture, a program, they're a lot of fun. I've done a lot of these already. I've literally spoken in, I think, 7 different countries on 5 continents.
Wow.
And yeah, it's cool. So
It's
I would love to
super
do that.
interesting, and everyone can relate to
Yeah,
it.
it's about celebrating Jewish culture. That's really what it's about. It's
That's
not
awesome.
it's not history. It's about culture and how awesome we are.
That's fantastic.
So, yeah,
I
that's the
love
main
it.
thing.
I love it.
What do you want to promote, Dayna?
What do I promote? You.
Ah, thank you.
I want to promote people who are doing good things in this country. That's what
Thank
I
you.
want to promote.
Thank you.
I
And
think-
yeah, and the other thing I'd say is I want to promote you guys coming to Israel so that I can take you on tours and stuff like that. And maybe
make you stay.
maybe one of them will want to be another guest on the Dayna show.
My biggest pleasure. My biggest pleasure. Thank you so much for coming and
It's
all the way
been-
from Jerusalem.
All the way.
All the way.
Thank God you live in Modi'in. It's not like you're living in like Afula or something like
Listen,
that.
I had to come up with this podcast just to get a chance to see you.
Well, you know where to find me. We can always get together for a beer in Jerusalem if you'd like to come.
I'm definitely there.
L'chaim.
L'chaim. A lot of success and luck in the future.
Amen. Thank you.
Thanks for watching, everyone.
Thank you for tuning in to this week's episode of The Dayna Show. If you like what you heard, you can subscribe to the podcast, like and share with your friends on social media, and rate us 5 stars. Don't forget to tune in next week, and we'll see you then.